Welcome to Life Stories. Today, we share a powerful and unforgettable tale of betrayal, strength, and resilience. Imagine your life being turned upside down in the most unexpected way, on what should have been the happiest day of your life. A graduation ceremony, filled with joy and pride, becomes the setting for a shocking revelation that changes everything. In this story, a woman uncovers the truth about her husband's betrayal and navigates the storm with quiet determination, showing us all what true strength looks like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and join us as we begin today's story. I never imagined my son's college graduation would end like this. The ceremony at the University of Minneapolis was nothing short of perfect. The sky was a brilliant blue, the atmosphere charged with the infectious joy of accomplishment. There was something almost magical about the day, families beaming with pride, students in caps and gowns celebrating years of hard work. My son, Michael, had worked tirelessly for his business degree, and I couldn't have been prouder. We had waited for this moment for years, and now, watching him walk across the stage, I felt a rush of love and joy that I had no words for. It should have been one of the happiest days of my life. But as the day unfolded, something changed. I don't know if it was a feeling in my gut, an unexplainable shift in the air, or perhaps the way my husband, James, was acting. He had always been a man of few words, but today he seemed different. He kept checking his phone, glancing nervously around, as if waiting for something to happen. His assistant, Emily, was with us as well. Of course, she was there officially to help coordinate the dinner afterward. But there was something about her presence that felt off. Emily was young, probably in her early 30s, and had worked with James for the past 2 years. She was competent, confident even, but there was an air of familiarity between them that made me uneasy. I pushed the thought aside, thinking it was just my mind playing tricks on me. After all, I had no reason to suspect anything. James and I had built a comfortable life together in Minneapolis. We had raised Michael in a home filled with love and warmth. I had trusted him with everything, my heart, my life, my family. Our relationship, to me, had always been solid. We weren't rich, but we were secure. We had saved for our future, for Michael's future, and for our retirement. I worked as a financial advisor, a job I was good at, while James ran his own successful consulting firm. We had everything planned. Life was supposed to be steady, predictable, and safe. But then, just as we gathered for photos after the ceremony, the moment came, the moment I would never forget. We were all standing in a circle, laughing and congratulating Michael. When James stood up, his champagne glass raised, I thought he was going to say something heartfelt about our son's achievements, something sentimental that would bring a tear to my eye. But instead, his voice rang out, cold and steady, though the words seemed to hang in the air, like heavy fog. I have something important to share with everyone, he said, his eyes meeting mine for the briefest of moments. Before his gaze darted away, the way he said it made my stomach drop. I'd seen that look before, many times, in my line of work. It's the look people get before making life-altering decisions. Decisions that are irreversible. It's a mixture of guilt and determination. A look of someone who knows they're about to break something. Perhaps even destroy it, but does it anyway. I'm leaving, he continued, his voice now louder, more forceful. Emily and I are in love, and we're starting a new life together. I've already transferred our savings to ensure our fresh start. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel the air shift as the words hung in the space between us. I looked around, seeing the stunned expressions on our friends and family. Michael's face went pale as he stood frozen, unable to process what he was hearing. Our guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats, unsure whether to leave or stay, unsure what to make of this shocking revelation. And there she was, Emily, standing next to James, her hand resting possessively on his arm, a triumphant smile plastered on her face. It was as if she had been waiting for this moment for years. But what struck me more than her presence, more than her smile, was the way James looked at her. The way he smiled as if everything was finally falling into place. It was a moment I'll never forget. A moment where everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, and my future was called into question. But instead of the shock and devastation James had clearly expected, I felt an odd sense of calm wash over me. Maybe it was because I had already seen this coming. Maybe it was because, deep down, I had known for months that something wasn't right. Or maybe it was because I had already prepared for exactly this moment. I reached for my purse, my fingers brushing against the weight of the envelope inside. It had been there for 3 months, tucked away, waiting for the right time to be revealed. A plan, a strategy, meticulously constructed and perfected. I had known about James's infidelity long before he made this announcement. Long before Emily ever stood at his side. The strange transfers in our accounts, the expensive hotel charges, the first-class plane tickets to destinations I had never heard of, all of it had added up over time. I had pieced it together, little by little. It was almost laughable how naive he had been. He thought he could hide it all from me. He thought he could outsmart me. But he had underestimated one crucial thing: he had underestimated me. I had spent 20 years working in finance, handling other people's money with precision and care. I knew how to spot irregularities. I knew how to dig deeper. And so, that afternoon, as James made his announcement, I was ready. I was ready to reveal the truth, to expose the carefully crafted illusion he had built. And I wasn't about to let him have the last word. As I sat there, the glass of champagne still in my hand, I couldn't help but watch James. He looked so sure of himself, so convinced that his announcement had been a masterstroke. I could see the slight twitch at the corner of his mouth, the way he seemed to expect applause or some sort of validation for his bravery. He had thought that by making this announcement at Michael's graduation, the public setting would somehow shield him from the consequences. What he didn't realize was that by choosing this moment, this time, he had done exactly the opposite. The room had gone silent. The kind of silence that isn't comforting, but oppressive. My thoughts raced as I fought to maintain composure. This was no longer about the man I had married or the life we had built. This was about something much bigger: justice. It was about Michael, who had just walked across the stage to receive his diploma, only to have his pride and joy shattered by the very people who should have been his biggest supporters. It was about the years of sacrifice, the dreams of a future that was now being stolen from us. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. It would have been so easy to break down, to collapse in front of everyone, to scream and cry and demand answers. But I had already done the hardest part. I had already seen this coming. I had already accepted the truth. And now, it was time to act. As James stood there, smug and triumphant, my mind drifted back to the months leading up to this moment. It had all started with small, seemingly insignificant things, those little signs that I had brushed aside at first. The strange hotel charges, the business trips that didn't quite add up, the unusual transfers in our joint accounts. They were things that any normal wife might have missed. But not me. I was trained to look for patterns, to identify irregularities. And those patterns were there. I just had to follow the trail. I had spent weeks tracking every transaction, every receipt, every movement in our accounts. My mind was like a machine, methodical and precise. I wasn't emotional about it. I wasn't angry yet. I was just focused on the facts. And the facts told me everything I needed to know. There were dinners at expensive restaurants, ones I had never heard of, with charges to the same credit card James used. There were flights to the Caribbean, reservations at 5-star hotels. There was a consistent pattern of spending that could not be explained by business trips or work-related expenses. It was clear to me now. James wasn't just having an affair, he was planning an escape. The deeper I dug, the more I uncovered. Jewelry purchases from Tiffany's, first-class tickets to places I had never been. And then, the most telling of all, the transfer of money into an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. It was an attempt to hide his tracks. To cover his tracks in a place where no one would look. But what James didn't realize was that I had handled our taxes for the past 15 years. I knew every account, every investment, and every penny we had saved. His hidden money wasn't hidden from me, it was hidden from him. I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication as the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. He had thought he was being clever, thought he could outsmart me. But I had been 2 steps ahead of him the entire time. And now, as I sat there watching him and Emily, I knew it was time to reveal the truth. I reached for my purse, my fingers brushing against the envelope that had been my constant companion for the past few months. The weight of it was both heavy and comforting. Inside that envelope was everything James had worked so hard to hide, the evidence of his betrayal, the proof of his lies, and the confirmation that everything he had planned was about to unravel. I didn't even need to look at it. I knew exactly what was inside. The documents, the bank statements, the flight itineraries, they were all there. The final piece of the puzzle had been the call from my friend Laura in HR, who had told me about Emily's transfer request to James's new office in Bermuda. That was when it all became clear. James wasn't just having an affair, he was planning to leave me, to take everything we had worked for, and run away with Emily. As I sat there, holding my glass of champagne, I knew that it was time to act. James might have thought he had orchestrated the perfect exit, but I was about to show him just how wrong he was. The truth was, I had already contacted my lawyer, Patricia. Together, we had spent weeks preparing for this very moment. We had filed the divorce petition, frozen our assets, and gathered the evidence of James's financial fraud. We were ready. James was still talking, still trying to explain himself, but his words were meaningless. It was all part of the show he thought would win him sympathy and support. What he didn't know was that the stage had already been set for a very different kind of performance. And I was the one in control now. I smiled to myself, feeling the weight of the moment. Everything was about to change, as James continued to speak. His voice now filled with the kind of self-satisfaction only someone who believes they've outsmarted everyone can possess. I felt a surge of quiet determination. He was standing tall, holding on to his illusion of control, while Emily, standing by his side, had this air of smug confidence about her. She was holding James's arm possessively, as though to stake her claim on him, as if she were the victor in this twisted game. But what neither of them realized was that their victory was nothing more than a fleeting illusion. They were on borrowed time, and their world was about to crumble. I could feel the eyes of the room on us. Some curious, some concerned, but mostly shocked. They hadn't expected this. Who could have? A son's graduation, supposed to be a celebration of years of hard work, was now the backdrop for a personal betrayal that none of us had anticipated. Michael's face, pale and filled with confusion, hurt me more than I could put into words. This was supposed to be his day. This was supposed to be his moment of triumph. But instead, it had been hijacked by the 2 people who were supposed to be his role models. His foundation. I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he stood rigidly, trying to keep it together. But it was clear he was struggling to process what was happening. I took another deep breath, a steadying inhale that grounded me. I reached into my purse, fingers brushing the envelope that had been a constant weight at my side. It wasn't just a physical object, it was a symbol of everything I had learned over the past few months. Everything I had quietly put in motion while James continued to think he was pulling the strings. I pulled it out slowly, deliberately, savoring the moment. This was it. This was my moment to take control. The silence in the room grew heavier as I stood up, the rustle of my chair against the floor breaking the tension. I could feel every single eye on me now, some unsure, some waiting for me to break down, but all of them uncertain of what would come next. I wasn't angry. I wasn't upset. I was calm, collected, and ready to unveil the truth. It was strange, almost surreal. But there was a sense of peace in knowing that I had done the right thing. I had prepared for this moment. And I was no longer going to let James dictate the narrative.
James, I said.
My voice steady, yet unmistakably firm.
His name was a sharp sound in the otherwise still air.
He looked at me,
his face still wearing that smirk.
A false confidence that cracked slightly at the edges, as he saw me stand and pull the envelope from my bag. Emily's eyes darted to the envelope as well. The realization hitting her that something was coming. Something she hadn't anticipated. You thought you had everything planned. Didn't you? I continued, taking a step forward, meeting his gaze directly. I didn't look away. I didn't flinch. You thought this moment would be your escape, your great revelation, but you forgot one thing.
James.
I let the words hang in the air,
allowing the weight of them to sink in.
The suspense, for once, was mine to control. You forgot who I am.
James's face faltered for the briefest of moments.
For a second,
I could see the cracks in his facade.
The flicker of doubt as he realized that something wasn't right. He opened his mouth to speak, but I didn't let him.
Before you start making excuses, I said,
cutting him off. Before you try to justify your betrayal, I think it's time you took a look at what's in this envelope. I extended my arm, holding it out toward him. His eyes widened slightly, a flicker of panic crossing his features. But he quickly composed himself, his hand reaching out, trembling slightly. He didn't know what he was about to face. As he took the envelope from my hand, I watched his fingers shake, the weight of the moment settling in on him. I had spent months putting this together, gathering evidence, tracking every irregularity, every strange purchase,
every email,
every bank statement. I had carefully crafted this moment. And now it was time to watch him realize just how much I knew. The first document he pulled out was the divorce petition, stamped and filed weeks ago. I could see the color drain from his face as he scanned it quickly.
This was it, the moment he realized that I wasn't going to roll over.
I wasn't going to play the part of a hurt wife who let him get away with everything. I had already taken steps to protect myself, to protect Michael, and to protect our future. What is this? He stammered, his voice faltering for the first time. I didn't answer. Instead, I watched him flip through the papers, one by one.
The documents came out, bank statements showing the offshore account,
credit card receipts for extravagant purchases,
hotel bills for stays at places I had never heard of.
The evidence was undeniable. And as he read it, I could see the full weight of his actions crashing down on him. His smug expression faded completely as he turned the page, eyes widening in shock. You knew? He whispered, a mix of disbelief and fear in his voice. He couldn't comprehend it. He couldn't believe that I had been watching him this entire time, piecing everything together while he thought he was getting away with it. Yes.
I knew, I said quietly,
my voice firm and resolute. And I've been preparing for this moment long before you ever thought about leaving. As James continued to flip through the stack of papers, his hands trembling more with each revelation, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of relief. For months, I had carried the weight of his betrayal, his lies, and his deceit. But now, in this moment, I was finally free. I was no longer the victim of his manipulations. No longer the woman who turned a blind eye. I was the woman who had taken control of her life. The woman who had exposed the truth. And the woman who had safeguarded her future. James's world was collapsing around him. And I watched. Not with malice, but with quiet satisfaction. The silence in the room was deafening as he scrambled to make sense of it all. His reputation, his career, and his relationship with Emily were all crumbling. The board of his company was already investigating his actions, and Emily's dreams of a new life in Bermuda were shattered. I had seen through his lies, and in the end, I had outsmarted him. Turning to Michael, I could see the relief in his eyes. The weight had lifted from his shoulders too. He had witnessed his father's betrayal, but now he saw his mother stand strong, unwavering. This day would forever be etched in his memory. Not just as a day of graduation, but as a day of empowerment and resilience. As I gathered my things and prepared to leave the scene behind, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I had faced the storm, and I had come out stronger on the other side. Thank you for watching this life story. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.
Stay tuned for more powerful, real-life stories that inspire and empower.